Shelly here is a strong woman, one that I recently started admiring because now I know a little bit more about her. And as you see here in her bio, business and real estate investor who is respected and valued as a wealth strategic, I'm going to say strategist and strategic thinker, hands-on project manager. She leads successful business, partnership, and multi-family real estate. Syndication. Who knows what real estate syndication is? I have no idea what that was. Like a month ago, I had to look it up. I said, okay, I have an idea what this is. So, commercial. Shelly is on a journey to teach us the commercial real estate and syndication. And I'm going to tell you guys again, pick her brains while you guys have it because we want to get all those questions asked her. Because after this and after this weekend, it'll be harder to see her. But social media is a great way to connect. So without further ado, Shelly.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me well? Okay, awesome. I know it's a little hard to talk like at a 3 o'clock afternoon after a big lunch and going into unison and having drinks. It's hard to compete with all that, guys. So I'm going to do my very best. But it is a pleasure of mine. Let me just get onto this. It's truly a pleasure of mine to be here. Tu and I have been friends. We actually met at a conference just like this about 4 or 5 years ago, and he was the only Hmong person there, and I was the only Hmong person there. And a lot of the times when I go out to conference and I speak, I don't run into any Hmong people, so I never expect to run into a Hmong person. And I remember him messaging me like, "Are you Hmong? And are you going to this conference?" And I'm like, "Yeah, and you're Hmong too?" And so we ended up connecting and having lunch or dinner one night, and that was the beginning of our relationship. So here we are today, 5 years later, saw the growth that Tu had, and Tu saw the growth that I had, and so I'm excited to be here as one of his guests and really to be able to address all of my Hmong brothers and sisters here. I would say, I was sharing with a few folks today that I have never really spoken with the Hmong audience. I always speak at events, but it's non-Hmong. And so it's going to be awkward for me to every now and then pop in some Hmong words. So excuse me for those that I know but excuse me if my English is faster than my Hmong. So with that, I want to say that today, let me, show of hands. How many of you, I know Michelle asked the question, how many of you have heard of syndication? Okay, good. How many of you have participated in the syndication as a capital partner? One. Good. And how many of you have actually been part of a syndication as a general partner or a sponsor or on the syndication team? Okay. Well, good. This is great because this really helps me understand where you guys are at and how I can address this presentation and tailor it to you. Before we go there, let me give you a little bit of a background about myself. So as Michelle mentioned, I am one of those individuals that if you see me in Fresno, you probably won't recognize me. Just because I like to lay low. I'm not a huge social media guru out there. I do my thing. Life is super busy. So for me, I lay low. But I specialize in certain areas, and people that know me or need my help know exactly how to find me. So people, mostly folks know me as a wealth strategist. And the term wealth strategist really means I help people build, manage, and grow their wealth. And the reason why I do that is because I have a background in finance, real estate, and business. So I integrate all three components together to help people grow their wealth, whether it is in their business expansion, whether it is a commercial property that they're looking at buying, whether it's a development. That's what I do. In addition to that, I am also a real estate investor. I've been investing for over 18 years. Started my journey just like many of you sitting in these rooms with single family, and now I'm working on commercial deals. during my free time, which I don't have a lot, which is like Friday from 1 to 4, don't tell my clients this, guys. That's when I do business consulting. And that's when I help folks, especially a lot of our Southeast Asian folks in Fresno, start a business or grow their business. So aside from all that, I do oversee a property management company. How many people here does short-term rentals or have an Airbnb? How many does midterm rentals? Good, one hand, yay. I love midterm rentals. And long-term rentals. I think most of you probably do long-term rentals. So our company we run a portfolio that we own solely, and we do all 3 types of rentals. And so last but not least, I am licensed. That's my little family right here. Been married to my husband for 18 years, know him for 28 years, high school sweetheart, and I have 2 beautiful girls, an 11 and a 13-year-old. So this is my life. So I want to start off by getting to know you guys a little bit more so that I can further tailor this to you. How many people here was born in America? Show of hands. So about a little over half, okay? How many people here consider themselves as like the middle child? I mean, I know our Hmong family are big. So, okay, good. You'll see why I asked that question later. Just as for fun, how many of you guys know paradise? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Because it tells me what kind of generation you were in and how you think, guys. How many of you have been in real estate for more than 10 years? Okay, just a couple. And then how many of you here still works a W-2 job? Okay, a good half. And last but not least, how many of you here have $250,000 that you are ready to deploy for a deal right now? Okay, good. I asked that question because as a real estate investor, that should be your goal. Your goal should be to have capital. You either have capital or you have skills. If you don't have the capital, you need to work to save the money to have the capital. If you don't have the capital, you also need to work the skills. You need to have the skills. Because in the world that we're in, it's either one or the other. So today, just a little bit engagement from all of you. Let me ask you, what is it that you guys want to learn from me today? I have a presentation, but throw me out some questions that you want me to answer, whether now or later. Go ahead in the back. Okay, I'll just answer your question about tapping into equity. HELOC is the way to go. Rates are high, but HELOC is the way to go. You could refi if you want to, but I think for me personally, it's easy for HELOC. You get access to the money. You don't take the money, so you don't pay the interest until you take the money. A credit investor, we'll talk about it later. Any other questions? Okay, we'll keep moving forward because this helps me understand. I just want to see where you guys all stand. So many people ask me, how did you start your journey? And just like many of you guys, I didn't have a wealthy family. My parents came to America in 1978. We settled in Fresno in 81, and I was born in Fresno. And specifically, these apartments here. And so in that time, there was like a black and white TV. We were so poor, we had this black and white TV. And I don't know if you guys remember the TV, but it has like that dial, right? And you had to turn it and go, and then the numbers, the channels were so faded. You couldn't even tell what channel you're on. So you turn until you see picture and you stop to see if you're in the right channel, right? So who can identify? Yes. That was the life that I grew up in. And there was 11 of us in that 2-bedroom apartment, and we had that little black and white box TV. Well, one day, I was probably about a 3rd grader, and I was turning on that TV, and I was looking for my show. And as I was turning that dial, I saw a picture, and I stopped. And I looked, and it was this woman. She was white, and she had on a business suit, a skirt and a suit, a jacket, and she had a briefcase, and she was walking up the stair to this building. And I remember looking at her and thinking, I want to be like her one day. I want to wear that suit. And that was the image that stuck in my head. And so that image was what led me into my world of business. I didn't know that I would learn to love business, just like that woman. But that was what shaped my vision to become a businesswoman. I went into college, got my degree in business finance. I love numbers and I love money, so it worked out great. And then from there on, I started pursuing business opportunities and started pursuing real estate. So as I completed my degree in college, I went on to manage money. And I was a great money manager. In 2004, I was licensed as a CFP. So CFP is a certified financial planner. And at that point, I was the youngest financial planner in the U.S., and I was the only Hmong. I don't know, we have another Hmong one now, another Hmong CFP. But at that time, I was the youngest CFP. And I remember managing people's money. And these folks would come to me and they'll write me a $100,000 check or a $200,000 check. And they would say, can you invest this money into a retirement fund for me so that when I retire, I can have like $5,000 a month of income? And so I would take the check and I will invest it in mutual funds and maybe a few stocks. And then that night I would go home and then I wouldn't sleep. And I'll be laying awake in my bed thinking, did I do the right thing? Did I invest it in the right fund? This person is 40 years old, and they're relying on retiring with a $5,000 income, and they're relying and putting their full trust in me, who I was like 25 at that time. And I was like, that was a big burden that I had to carry. But, in addition, I had no control of that mutual fund, what it was doing. I had no control that Google was going to go up by like 100%. I had no control that one day Yahoo was going to go out of business. But I put people's money in those funds. Can anybody here control the performance of a company? The stock of a company? Or the mutual fund's performance? All we do is we rely on the past history of that fund or of that stock to help us predict what the future would do. But no one ever saw that Yahoo would be where it's at, that Google would be where it's at now, 20 years ago. And so that was the beginning of my real estate journey. Because one day, my mom said, I was about to close escrow on a business. I was buying my first restaurant franchise. And my mom said to me, Shelly, instead of buying that business, why don't you take that money and buy a house? You can pick the tenant that you want to live in that house. You can decide how much you want to rent that house for. And you can still go back to work and make money, and they're still going to pay your mortgage for you. And I thought, my mom's right. Why do I want to buy this restaurant that I'm going to go out and work every day or hire employees and try to make a margin on it, whereas I can buy this house? Because I had control of that house, right? I had control of how much I was going to rent the house for. I had control of what I was going to do to that house. So why real estate? Many of you here know that you want to be in real estate, but you might not know all the reasons why. And these are the reasons why, not just for me, but for all of you. Number one, cash flow. It's the cash flow from real estate that's important to us. That's what we keep referring to as the passive income. Equity. Obviously, you build equity over time because your tenants pay down your mortgage. Appreciation, just like all of us experience appreciation in the last couple of years, the house goes up with inflation and plus more based on demand. Tax benefits, write-offs, depreciation. I'll talk about this later in commercial, but the depreciation in commercial is tremendous. When I worked a W-2 job, I made 6 figures. And when I went to real estate, I made twice as much, and I paid no taxes. This is a funny story. I remember a couple of years ago, so I don't want to be political, but there was a big issue about wanting Donald Trump to disclose his taxes. Do you guys remember that? And then there was a comment that someone wrote a comment that he paid less taxes than his assistant. And I remember reading that comment, and I knew exactly why he paid less taxes than his assistant, because of all the depreciation that he got from his real estate, from his commercial properties. It's amazing. It's amazing. I can buy an asset 1 year. This was in 2020. I got $90,000 of depreciation that I can write off against my income. So it was like, hey, I'll take that any day. 90 minus whatever my income is. I'm not paying taxes on 90,000. So the taxes are tremendous. The control. I talked about control. And yes. Not necessarily. With the commercial like multi-family, there's a concept called cost segregation, that you can do cost segregation, and they have a bonus depreciation that's been put in place that I think you can do a write-off up to about 70% upfront. No, this commercial. Commercial, yes. Commercial, yes. Accelerated depreciation, yes, yes. 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 And yes, you can use the accelerated. There's different schedule, and because of the recent, I think it was the Jobs Act of 2022 or something like that, they implemented not 2022, 2020, I think. They implemented a concept called bonus depreciation, which allows you to depreciate even more at a faster rate. So when you invest in commercial, they can do a cost segregation, which means that they split out your assets and depreciate like. The simple concept to think about is that they'll depreciate the AC, and then they'll depreciate, whatever items that's in the commercial. But they sum all that up, and your depreciation becomes really big. It's probably 6 or 7. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the reason. So, and tangible asset. Real estate is a tangible asset. Going back to my example about the stocks. Who can hold their stock? Who can hold a mutual fund? You can't. Again, you have no control of it. If your house burned down, is that property still worth something? Because there's always value in the land. So real estate is the only asset that you will never go down to zero. Never. Maybe $1. But still, even when the city sells this property, they're selling us for $1. You won't go down to zero. But I want to talk about control, because control in real estate is so important. So, control in real estate, you have full control of what the income that you want to generate from the real estate. In 2015, I had a goal, and my goal, from the time I started real estate until 2015, I was fixing, flipping, selling, renting. Like, I just kind of did whatever. And I think many of you feel that way. Like, you're just kind of like trying this out a little bit, trying that out to see what works. And I was doing that, and I was kind of getting tired of that. So I wanted to set a solid goal. And that goal was I wanted $10,000 of passive income. And we all hear this formula, 100 doors times $100 per month, and you get $10,000, right? Who has heard of this? Who is trying to achieve this? Okay. I hope I don't kill your dream, guys. So I started working towards my 100 door, and I realized how hard that was. Managing 10 was hard enough. Imagine managing 100 doors. And I was only making $100 a month on a door. That was horrible. And if the AC went out, I would be out like $600, and that's 6 months of income of net that I would have lost. And I quickly realized that that was not working for me. So what did I do? I said, hey, let's speed up the process and do small multifamily. Let's do duplex, triplex, 6 units, 10 units. That was better, but still it was slow. So what did I do? Goes back to control. I had control of what I wanted to do. I did short-term, mid-terms. Airbnbs, many of you have done Airbnbs. That netted me $1,000 per unit. Hey, I only need 10 units now, right? To get to 10,000. Who would rather do 10 units for 10,000? Right? Any day versus 100 units at $100. So sorry for those of you that had that dream that I just killed. I apologize. But please think outside the box. I'm giving you a formula here. So I came across the second option. I said, this is great. I'm doing 10 units, $1,000 a month, 10,000. Great. I've achieved my goal. But the problem was that gave me the income, but that did not give me the equity. Let me give you a scenario. I had a $350,000 home here. I rented out to a long-term tenant. I made $100 a month profit. Second home next door, $350, Airbnb, made $1,000 a month. Did the house that I Airbnb, is it worth more or less than the house that I did long-term? Or the same? Trick question. Why? Why is it the same? Because single-family home, the value is based on the comps around that single-family home. So I can make $1,000 off from that home. The home will still be worth $350. Or I can make $100 off of that home, and it could still be worth $350. Right? No difference. And for me, I was like, I want more equity because it's generating more money. Right? Why would I pay the same amount or be worth the same amount if it's making 10 times more? Well, that was what opened the door to commercial for me. Commercial has the combination of both. For $1 million at a 12% cash on cash, that gave me the same $10,000 a month. I know you guys are thinking, well, Shelly, I got to have $1 million in the bank. That's true, but you can work your way there. I'll show you why. So these are just a couple homes. So investments that we had a couple apartments, homes. These are smaller units. These are some syndications that we've done. We have also recently transitioned into doing commercial self-storage and industrial. So these are actually new industrial development. We just finished building this one. Actually, we just did the grand opening like in June, I think. And this one, I just put in the money for this one June 26th. So this one is still in the works. So this gives you an idea that these are kind of the properties that I'm talking about. So let me get back here so I can see my notes here. So just a show of hand, how many of you have actually increased your rents by more than $100 this past year? Okay, more than 100. Okay, good. Did the value of your house go up at all by doing that? The value of your house didn't go up, right? You just had the tenants pay more. Well, when I increase my rents for my multifamily, 50 units, we bought it $4 million. It's about $80,000 a unit. I assume a cap rate of 5%. When I increase the rent by $100, my NOI is $260,000. That's net operating income. And my value went up $1.2 million. Just by asking my tenants to pay $100 more per unit. So that's the difference between a single family and a commercial. Single family, you get the income, but you don't get the equity. In a commercial, you get the income and you get the equity. And that's the reason why we moved over to multifamily. The question that many of you are going to be saying is, how many of us have 1.2 million, right? Who has 1.2 million in their bank account? I don't. But that's exactly the reason why there are joint ventures in syndication. The answer to doing these big deals is syndication. We don't do these deals alone. Why? Even if you had 1.5 million or 1.2 million, I wouldn't recommend you to do it because it's too much risk. You got to spread the risk. So what is a syndication? A syndication is when multiple people come together to bring in resources and skills. They pool their resources, which is money, together, and they pool their skills together. Going back to what I said earlier, if you don't have money, you better have skills, right? You don't have skills, you better have money. There's a lot of wealthy people out there that has no skills, but they have a lot of money. You got to have one or both. That's what syndication does, is it allows a group of people to come together. In the $1.2 million example that I showed you, 3 people can come together and each put up $400,000. That's a lot more doable. 12 people can come together and put up $100,000, and that's a lot more doable. And that's the power of syndication. In syndication, you can come together, use these type of assets. You can do a residential portfolio. I've seen syndication where they have 100 homes in the fund that they're trying to buy. You can do multifamily. That's where I specialize in. Industrial, assisted living. You can even do businesses. So why syndicate? Price. Price is number one. $10 million. People, if you have to buy something worth $10 million, not one person will buy it, but 10 people will be willing to buy that asset. Capital. I talked about the 1.2 million. If we spread that 10 ways, it's on 100,000. How many of you will invest in a multifamily for 100,000? Right? But would you put 1.2 million in there? Maybe not. So leverage. When you're in commercial, you have so much leverage. The bank, if the asset makes sense, the bank is willing to give you the money. It's not like in a single family where they're going to look at your debt to income ratio. Your spouse needs to make sure they have a job. Like you gotta have some money in the bank. Show them your bank statement. Completely different animal. It's all based on the performance of the asset. You spread the risk, but most importantly, you have a team of specialists. And that team of specialists, you have someone that knows the finance. You have someone that knows how to manage. You have people that know what they're doing that's coming together. So people always ask me, well, Shelly, why do you syndicate? Like, what is your personal reason, right? So for me, number one for me is passive investment. I want to work on big deals, but I can't. I have a family. I have kids. I want to just work 10 hours a day. I can't do like Steven, that they're doing 16 and 18. I can't do that. I want to be a mom. I want to be able to live life. And that's why syndication works well for me, because it becomes semi-passive, where it doesn't require all my attention. I can hire a property manager to manage that 300 units, and I am managing the property manager. I don't need to be on site, right? How many of you guys have a well-paying job, and because your job pays you so much, you can't be in real estate because you don't have the time? I have doctors, dentists, surgeons. They're making like $60,000, $70,000 a month. Well, how many of them have time to go flip a house, right? No, they don't. They're not even going to have time to look at the asset. But they have that $50,000, $100,000 that they can put towards an investment. I like working with people that have skills and know what they're doing already. I know I'm not good at everything. So I want a team that's good. I love the tax benefits. I've told you guys that already. I love the forced appreciation. What I talked about is by increasing the rent $100, I just walked away with $1.2 million of equity. That's power right there. That's something that a single family home will never be able to do for you because it's just the way the structure is. So many of you are probably thinking, well, Shelly, this is great, but I have not heard of syndication. Why is that? And that's because syndication is really geared towards accredited investors. It's for folks that has a net worth of $1 million or more. You have to make $200,000 if you're single, $300,000 if you're or more if you're married. So the average Joe, like us, a lot of time we're not even in that pool for them to consider us as an investor or as a team member because we don't meet those qualifications. And the reason for that is that it is considered a security. So it is heavily regulated. So if you don't meet those requirements, then you better have the skills and go do the deal, right? Because you don't meet the requirements, you don't have the money, you've got to have the skill. So who should invest in syndication? If you want truly passive income, that would be you. If you're a high income earner and you don't have the time, you love real estate, you just don't have the time to do the work, that would be you. You have no time to invest. You want to gain the experience into bigger deals, but you don't want to do it alone. You want to do it with an experienced team. That would be you. That was how I learned. I learned because I started putting up money into other people's syndication. And as I did that, I learned the ropes, and then they started seeing my talent. They're like, hey, Shelly, I want you on my next team. I want you to do this deal with me. And that's how I started building teams across the nation. We had properties in South Carolina, Texas, Oklahoma, California, obviously. So our properties are everywhere, and I have different teams. And it's because in every team, I have a different role. And it's based on what the needs are for me in that team. And last but not least, especially for those of you that have your real estate license and you're acting as a realtor as well, all this depreciation here counts against your income. So let's say you made $120,000 in commission and you invested in a property that gave you $90,000 of depreciation. You're really only paying taxes on $30,000. That's phenomenal. You will know that when you go file your taxes. So now a lot of my investment are structured strategically around taxes. I'll give you guys an example of the one that let me go back real quick. This one that I just did. This guy down here, these two are identical because they're run by the same company, just different location. This one here is I think it's like a $35 million deal. I have to go back and look at the final numbers. But what happened here was I sold this property here. This was an apartment complex that we had, 56 unit. We sold that apartment last year, and I was ready to claim the taxes, the gains. And I said, well, I'll pay the taxes on it, suck it up, and move forward. But I knew at the back of my head that there had to be a better strategy. And so this deal we were working on, and this deal is what they call an opportunity zone. Have you guys heard of an opportunity zone? You don't pay taxes on that gain. So I kept talking to people, and I said, there's got to be a way where I can move this money from this apartment that I just sold that I need to pay taxes into this opportunity zone. And so I talked to a ton of people, and they said, we're not sure. Finally, on like June 15th, I spoke with a CPA, and he was a specialist in opportunity zone. And he said to me, Shelly, you have 180 days from the last day of the year that you sold the asset to put it in an opportunity zone fund, and you will defer those taxes until 2026, and you will get the gains tax-free in 10 years. So basically, what he said was, you're not going to pay taxes until 2026, and after you pay those taxes on the gain for the apartment, whatever gain after that point, it's going to be all tax-free. But you have to put the money in by June 28th, or else you're going to lose the deal, because that's the 180-day mark. And so in like less than 2 weeks, I found the money and put it in. And I would say I'm super excited about that. I'll share a slide later on that. So that strategy took me 2 weeks to get to. But I would tell you that strategy saved me $360,000. And that's where I think that as a real estate investor, we have to know the finance, the tax benefits, all those things. You can't just go out, flip the property, buy the property. That's the bread and butter, right? But at some point, we can't just live on bread and butter. We need to have meat. So those are the reason as to why you would want to do that. So syndication, okay, 4:00. 10 more minutes, and I'll open up for questions. So syndication, 3 phases. We have the acquisition phase, and then we go into operation once we acquire the asset. And then we go into liquidation. We typically hold anywhere 5 to 7 years, 10 at the max. It depends on the type of assets. In syndication, there's 2 types of ownership. There's a general partnership ownership, and there's a limited partner ownership. A general partner ownership is somebody that has the skills to manage the property, so we call it sweat equity. You manage, you oversee operation, you control the asset, you make the decision, you raise the fund, you get the loan, you do everything just like how you guys would do it in acquiring a single family. The limited partner is the person that just brings in the money. Hey, Shelly, here's my $50,000, here's my $100,000. I'm the GP, I do all the work. Ownership is usually split anywhere between, for general partner, they own anywhere between 20 to 40% of the asset. Limited partners own 60 to 80% of the asset. So as a general partner, I do all the work, and let's say I own 40% of the apartment. You're the capital. You guys own 60% of the apartment. These are the roles in a general partner. So for anybody that's interested in being a syndicator, you probably need to know which role you fit in and what you like. If you're good at numbers, you can be a financial manager. If you're good at raising funds, you can be the capital raiser. You can be the property manager. You can be the asset manager. There's multiple roles that you can play in. So here's a quick example that I'll go through. This is the apartment that we talked about earlier that we sold and went on to moving it to the other asset. 56 unit out in Moore, Oklahoma. We bought this property. The reason why we brought I'll tell you the 2 reasons why I invested in this property, and I was a GP in this property. But I didn't find this property. My partner did. But when he brought it to me, I did my own work, my own research. And the two reasons why I invested in this property was, let me ask you guys, do you guys know the number one reason? Looking at the photo, you might know. Location. It's right by one of the big freeways. I think this freeway kind of goes in Oklahoma, across Oklahoma. And I thought, that's great. Easy marketing, easy access. People likes that. The other reason why I invested in this deal and participated in this deal is we got it for $33,000 a door. How many people can build a house for $33,000 or an apartment unit? You can't even buy a car for $33,000 nowadays, right? And so because we got it for $33,000, I knew that there has to be value because that was well below what it would cost to build. So it's right here. These are just some of the photos of what I think the property was formerly, well, many years ago, it was a hotel or motel that was converted into an apartment. Our plan was we were just going to go in, do some light renovation, turn it around, and sell it. We got it at $1.8 million. Our mortgage was $1.4, roughly about $10,000 or so a month. We anticipated that we were going to spend $300,000 in reserve, and we raised $750,000 in capital for this deal. These are our renovation budget. The return here was estimated, this is by budget, was estimated between 11 to 12%. And so this is kind of an example that I like to show people when we talk about syndication, because people ask me, well, what's the return on syndication, right? So in syndication, you get paid two ways. Number one, you get paid either monthly or quarterly based on the profit of that property that month or that quarter. So for this example, we got paid every quarter for this property. So every quarter I would get a check of like $900, $1,000, whatever that may look like. And the second way you get paid is when the property is sold. Because you have ownership, when the property is sold, whatever percentage of ownership you had, that was what you get. So let's say if I own 50% and we sold the asset, I would get 50% of the profit, right? Because I have 50% ownership. So when we projected the performance of this asset, we thought that we were going to hold this for 5 years. So our estimate was that if you put in $50,000, we project that by the time we sell this in 5 years, we're going to give you back your $50,000 plus $53,000. Does that make sense? So you're giving me $50,000. I'm giving $103,000 back to you. That's a $50,000 return on your capital, $53,000 of the investment portion, the gain. Well, these were the actual numbers that came through. So this is an example of one of our investors. They put in $125,000. We paid out quarterly distribution, $26,000 total. When we sold the asset, we gave them back $266,000. So they profited $141,000 from the sale. So their total profit was $167,000 because you took the profit from the sale plus the quarterly distribution. That's how you got the $167,000. That was like a 33% return every year, and that was for 2.5 years. So this is the power of syndication. We upped the rent. That's why the value went up. I said we bought it at 1.8. Anybody want to guess what we sold it for? Close. 3.1. I anticipated, I'm a very conservative person, so if you know me, I always anticipate below. My projection was 2.6, and we came in at 3.1. So we listed at 3.3. We decided we gave the seller, we didn't finish fixing all the unit, We gave them like a $200,000 credit, so we ended up netting at 3.1. And that was in 2 years, a little over 2 years. So not a bad deal. So this is exactly what I was telling you guys earlier about what we did with the money. Took the money, move it into the industrial because it's in a new development, the opportunity zone, the tax-free. The same 125 would now be equivalent to 1.3 million. So this is an example of how you got to make your money work for you. I share this with a lot of people back in Fresno that, you know, in the culture that we're in the how we were raised, because our parents didn't have money. So we didn't know how to manage money. We never understood what to do with money other than earn money and save money, right? Our parents didn't tell us, oh, go do this with your money. All we were taught was go to school, find a job, work, save the money because you don't want to go broke. But in the world that we live in today, if you don't learn how to invest your money, you don't learn how to grow your money, you're going to fall behind. Because working a W-2 job isn't cutting it anymore. You're going to find that even making 100, 150,000, you're going to be struggling to make a living. You're either going to be super poor or you better be darn rich because that middle class won't exist anymore. So, yeah, these are the numbers for the Porterville project. That we anticipate tax-free proceeds will be about $1 million. If you were to calculate I just put a 30%, it's really worth the 1.3. And so average return across that 10-year time span, about 25%. People ask me, well, Shelly, I think if you were to take that 125 and you fix and flip a couple houses, you'll probably make that money in 10 years. I would agree. I probably would make that money or make more. But how much work would I be doing? That's the question you have to ask yourself. How much work are you doing? And going back to, this is the projection, but if we do well and we up the rents on these units, that value just increase automatically. Versus my single family, I have no control of the value of my single family. So pros and cons, something I don't want all of you to run out there and do a syndication because, there are good teams, there are bad teams. The pros of investing in a syndication is it's your entryway to larger deals. You gain the experience, the knowledge, you get the depreciation, you can use it if you are a passive active investor. The con is you do lose control. If you're a capital person, you're not going to be able to make decisions on what to do with that asset. And that means that you better darn trust those people, that team. You better know them inside and out. And then you share ownership. Sometimes you don't like the people you share ownership with. And sometimes you do. So you've got to be selective in what you do and where you invest. Because all that can make it or break the deal. So some words of wisdom for all of you. Team, know your team. Know your team and know their value, their core value. As a person, what do they believe in? What do they do? Like one of my core value is I always protect my investors' money. My investors' money come before my money. That's priority number one for me. Property. Do the research on the property. Don't let them tell you what the property is and how good it is. Do your own research. I did my own research. That's how I was able to find those numbers. Business plan. Know what they're going to do to the property to generate value. And the only way you make money, and regardless of what property you do, what deal you do, is about adding value. So you fix it, you renovate, you flip it, you add value. Same thing in commercial. What is it that we're adding value? Finance. Ask the question, where are they getting the money from? How much does it cost? Have multiple strategies. Know how to get out. Are we going to sell? Are we going to convert it? What are we going to do? And last but not least, invest only what you can afford to lose. I say that because a lot of time people forget, they get excited in real estate. Mini Guru talks about the quick way of making money, and you put your whole life saving in it, and then things don't go well. Be realistic. If you got to go slow, go slow. But don't make those decisions that you're going to regret. So, this is me in Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong 2015 for a study. And, some of the things I learned in life, in investment, and that I think that it's crucial for you guys, as whether you're a new investor or an existing investor, is number one, I believe that you have to acquire a skill. You got to be good in something. Whether you're going to find the deal, you're going to do the development, you're going to find the syndication, you're the contractor, you got to find a skill that you're good at to make you valuable in that team, so you can find the right team. You got to learn how to manage money. No matter how bad you are at math, I don't care how much money you make. If you don't know how to manage it, the project can be worse than a little project. I'll give you guys this story. So back in 2005, I met Donald Trump. I was at an event, and he was our speaker at the event. And I remember he was, and obviously by this time, this is way before the crash and way before his presidency and all that stuff. And he was talking, and I remember him telling this story. He said, one day he was walking out of the Trump Tower in New York, and he looked to the right, and there was a homeless man there. And the homeless man had a cup begging for money. And he glanced at the homeless man, and he walked into the limo. And as he was walking into the limo, a thought came to his mind. And that thought was, you're asking money from me when you have more money than I do. And what does that mean? Does anybody know what that means? Close. He has a lot of debt. He has a negative net worth. He's in the negative. The homeless man is zero, maybe positive, but he's in the negative. And that goes to show that it doesn't matter how wealthy a person is or looks, it's all about the net worth, the net. It's all about how they manage their money. Manage, save, and invest. And last but not least, I encourage all of you to set ambitious goals. Because I think the only way we can truly live life is to set big goals and challenge ourselves. Thank you, everyone. So I just, this was something I did for my 40th birthday. I'm really old. And I love this little quote that I wrote here, that at the end, our footprints will tell our story of where our journey began, where it led us to, and what we have done to make this world a better place. And I think real estate is only one tool. Our journey in real estate, we have to make it personal to us, tailor it to our goals and our dreams and the lifestyle that we want to live. And when you do that, it becomes in one with you. And so even though you're working 10 hours, 14, 18 hours, it doesn't even feel like work because you love what you do. So, any questions? Open it up for questions. Yes. Yes. Actually, yeah, I have a slide on syndication, but I might have hidden it. So now that you said that, I just remembered I did have a slide that just talked about syndication and requirements. But if you are not an accredited investor, what options are available for you? So the option that's available for you is what we consider as a joint venture. A joint venture is when you can still participate and partner with a number of people to take down a deal, whether it's an apartment, an office building, whatever it may be, but you can still partner with them to take down that deal. The only exception is that you have to be active in that deal, meaning you have to be able to contribute something. So that goes back to my saying of you either got money or you got skill, right? So if you're going to do a JV, you want to have some kind of a skill that you can contribute to the team. But a lot of deals, there are a lot of JV deals out there. That's a possibility. In addition to that, certain syndication, depending on how they do their filing, they do allow for a small number of non-accredited investors. So you have to look for those, and they'll tell you, oh, we allowed 35 non-accredited investors, or this is one where we do allow non-accredited investors because we're not marketing. And so in those deals, you will be able to participate. So, yes. Questions? So I would tell you that one of the biggest challenge of moving from single family into multifamily or commercial is exactly that issue of the analysis. The analysis is a lot more complex than a single family. So my recommendation for you would be, one, to find a template, an analysis template, or create one so that you can learn how to do that analysis. There's a lot of analysis out there, but once you start playing with the numbers and getting familiar, you will understand like how they work together. So answering your question about the cap rate varies from areas to areas. Cap rate is really, to me, is just kind of a number out there, honestly. But what you need to know is it's how I value it. Let me put it this way. How I value my asset and how I buy is I don't buy off from cap rate. I buy off from cash flow. Is it going to make money? I don't care. The cap rate might be 20%. But if it's not going to make money, it's not going to make money, right? But the cap rate could be 3%. But if it's going to make money, it's going to make money. So that's how I buy off is if it cash flow, let's say it cash flow, and after I pay my debt, I still make a 15 to 18% return, is something worth me looking at. So I would recommend you, instead of paying attention to cap rate, pay attention to cash flow. Is the property making money? Based on you buying it at that price, the debt that you have to carry, all the anticipated expenses that you have to pay for, are you making money at the end of the day? That's how you, and if you're not, then drop the price to where the point where you're going to make money, where it's going to make sense for you. Because I think moving forward, we will see some price adjustment. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Back there in the back. A long time. Yeah, so it depends on the team. I think a lot of time people sell because they want to turn their money over. It's the velocity of money. The faster you can turn your money, the more money you make. So most syndicator once they stabilize the asset, they want to turn their asset over so that they can move on to do something else. We do have syndicators that like the long-term hold option, and they'll hold it. But what they'll do is they'll return you your capital, okay? They're going to give you your money back. They're going to drop your ownership interest because they returned your money back to you, and then they'll hold it for the long term because that's more work on them. Does that make sense? So if you put in $100,000 and 3 years from now, I give you back your $100,000, I'm going to change your ownership from 20% to 10% because you have no money in the deal, right? I'm still doing the work, but you have no money in the deal. So your ownership would drop. So in those cases, they will hold it for the long term. So go ahead. Yes, so general partners do put money in. They actually front up their money first. Their money is what's in the front. Because there's a lot more expenses like appraisal fees and all that stuff that they have to pay for. So they generally front up their money. If you talk to any syndication team, they will tell you exactly how much they're putting in. So I'll give you an example that I'm actually working on an assisted living possible syndication right now. And our team is coming in between 20 to 25%. So we've already made that decision up front that that's our skin in the game. And then we will raise the remainder amount. So they'll tell you, and you have the right to ask them how much they're putting in, because they should have skin in the game. So. Yes. Yourself? Do a couple deals myself and make most of that back. So where do you think the determination? Yes. So I'll answer the first question. When do you know when to move? I think for me, I knew when to move when I realized that I was not getting the appreciation that I wanted in my single family. My wealth. So at some point, I know many of you are talking about cash flow. Like, I want this much passive income, right? There's going to be a point in your life where you're going to say, I want my net worth to be $1 million. I want my net worth to be $2 million. And to get there, one, you can save all that money, but that's not going to be fast enough. So you have to do other deals like this to up your net worth. And at that point, I think when you make that transition from your wanting income, passive income, to increasing your net worth, that is when you have to move towards commercial. So to move towards commercial, you have two options. You either do it yourself, if you have the capital, or if you don't, you got to syndicate or put your money somewhere. So I think that was when I made that transition. Is my focus went from passive income to net worth. Second question is, if you had $300,000, would I give the money to someone or do it myself? I think that depends on you. You have to evaluate your skill set and your capability. So I'll give you an example. If you are a very good flipper, you can buy wholesale at a 50% discount. You can renovate, fix, turn that money around. Maybe that $300,000, you can turn it 3 times in the year, and maybe it ends up netting $50,000 project. You turn it to $450 by the end of the year. Yeah, maybe that's a good deal. But if you're not that person and you can't do that, and you're still working, that's a stretch. You might want to do 1 flip a year. You might want to just, buy a single family and rent it out. That would be where you will make those decisions. Does that make sense? So I think it depends on your skill set, where you are in life. So for me, because I work for myself and I do this full time, it's like I'm always looking at, well, what is the most efficient way for me to get the most capital with the least amount of time? Yes. So the self-storage deal, it's funny, I wanted to tell the story, but so I was first exposed to self-storage back in 2018 and 2019. And I remember someone approached me and said, hey, Shelly, I think you might be interested in investing in this self-storage fund. They call it a fund. And the reason why they called it a fund is that they pull money together and they not only buy one self-storage, they buy multiple self-storage. And so my thought was, who would put their stuff in a self-storage? Because being a Hmong person, does anybody here have self-storage or put stuff in self-storage? 1, 2, right? I'm like, I've never seen anybody put stuff in a self-storage. I don't think that business model is going to work. So that was my thought. So I told her, I said, no, I'll pass on that. Well, fast forward, I continue getting the update from this group. Well, man, their returns were off the chart. I mean, from then till now, their funds probably went up like 400% or something. It's crazy. And so I started, at that moment, I'm like, okay, Shelly, you got to do the research. Like, you were biased. You're Hmong. You don't use self-storage because you put everything in the garage. Just like how we put all our dishes in the dishwasher, right? And we don't use the dishwasher. So I'm like, you take that Hmong hat off, take that bias hat off, do the research. I did the research. So in last year, at the beginning of 2022, I kind of started seeing the overall the real estate market slow down, and the multifamily. We were very heavy in multifamily, so it was at that point that we started selling our multifamily. We sold like 3 apartments in like 3 months, and that was when I decided that I need to diversify. And that's when I jumped into a self-storage. So it was for the diversification purposes. It's doing really well, actually. Our self-storage is doing very well. But part of that diversification is also the reason why I jumped into the industrial as well. The industrial, we have not, because we built it from ground up, we haven't got any return, any distribution. I'm expecting that we're going to do very well. But when we open our grand opening, because we got occupancy in May, and in June when we did the grand opening, we were 47% occupied. That was 1 month that we were open. So that's the reason why I also invested in the second one, because I saw the opportunity. To answer your question about the opportunity zone, I think if you are a high net worth or you're someone that pay a lot of taxes, you got to be strategic in your money, because you don't want a third of your investment going towards Uncle Sam, supporting Uncle Sam's activity. So part of that is I look for tax strategies, legal tax strategy. I don't want to do anything illegal. Legal tax strategy, so that I can put money in places that I don't have to pay taxes. So. Sure. So depreciation schedule aligns with the type of asset that you have. Like a single family, I think they have like a 27 years, 27.5 or things like that. I think the biggest benefit as an investor with depreciation is really the write-off against your income that year. So let me give you an example, okay? Going back to, where did I do with it? I think, it's towards the end. Going back to the example about how I did the opportunity zone. One of the reasons as to why I did this deal was if I didn't, I would have to pay the taxes, the gain here in 2022. I haven't filed my 2022 yet. So I would have to pay the gain in 2022. But by putting it into the opportunity zone, I defer that gain to 2026, okay? This building here, we broke ground this year. It's going to be built by 2025. By 2026, it will be fully operated. 2026, we're going to do a cost segregation. I'm going to get a huge depreciation, which is going to offset the taxes that I have to pay here in 2026. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? So that's an example of understanding timing and strategy, is that alignment of time. I'll give you another example real quick, and I'll come back to you. So the assisted living that I'm looking at, we're looking at buying. We're literally like, I think we're going to sign contract tomorrow or maybe tonight. We'll see. I may throw all my eggs in that basket. So I might sell a large part of my portfolio and invest it in that deal. And the reason for that is that as I sell my single family, I have to pay taxes, right? I have to pay capital gain. But if we close that deal by the end of the year, I will get the depreciation on that deal, which is going to write off, it's going to offset the gain that I'm having by selling my single family to invest in that deal. So if I do it right and we close on that deal, I should walk away this year without having to pay taxes on that gain. So right here, and I'll come back to you. Yes. So there are hundreds and thousands of syndicators out there. My recommendation for you would be, I would look for people that are near in my hometown that are doing syndication, that they're investing in properties that I can see, that I know the area, I know the location, and I would start there. Because let's say if you live in Minnesota here, Minneapolis, you know exactly the good parts of Minneapolis, the bad parts. I don't. So if I put my money in, I'm betting on that team to make the right decision. So as a starter, I think if you start there, your odds are much higher because you know you've done your research. You know that location. So I would start there. But there's a ton of syndicators out there. Sometimes they just call themselves as partners, developer syndicates, and all that. So it just doesn't come out that way. So, yes. Oh, my accountant. So, about these strategies. So actually, I came up with these strategies myself. I do a lot. I'm a very strategic thinker. So I come up with these strategies, and then I run them by my CPA, and I run them by my accountant, or my CPA, my attorney. A lot of times, sometimes they don't know because CPAs and attorneys, that's not their field. They're not real estate investors. They don't understand these things. So you almost need to go find the right person. So with this whole opportunity zone deal, I actually had to find a CPA that specialized in opportunity zone to answer that question for me, because my CPA that I was using couldn't answer that question for me. So now I switched to the new CPA. So yes, I ended up making that switch because I'm like, no, my stuff is too complicated now. I got to move to somebody else that has that understanding. So but I'll be happy to share if you have questions about specific. Yes. Any? Yes, back there? Sure. Yes. So the question is, when we sell these deals, what's the strategy or the thinking behind it? Is it because the debt's going to be due? Maybe we had an interest-only loan. Is it because we see a better deal? What's the reasoning behind it? I would tell you that the two main reasons, number one, is we got an offer that we can't really turn down. If the deal is really good, you're going to get offers. And sometimes you're just going to say, I'm going to take it and go. So like the Ridgewood deal, we weren't planning to sell. We were 2 years and 4 or 5 months in. We were planning to hold it for 5 years. But we got an offer and we thought, shoot, if we're going to almost double our money, why not, right? Why take the risk to hold it another 2 years? So we went in contract. That person backed out. But that gave us that idea that if that person offered 3.3, let's just keep finding another buyer that will close the escrow. So that was what triggered that. A lot of time, there are interest-only loan or bridge loan. They call it bridge loans. And when they're in a bridge loan and they're in a situation where they cannot refinance or they foresee that they're going to have a refinancing challenges, then they will try to offload the asset before. You also offload when you almost have to like prep the asset. Like it's almost kind of like you got to make it beautiful, put lipstick on it. So you prep the asset to a point where you know that it's almost as prime, but there's still meat on the bone. And then that's when you offload as well. So it's not like a single family where you decide tomorrow you're going to sell and then you put it on the market. I would say it's like a 3 to 6 month conversation and prepping to get it to its prime point. So. Yes. So it depends on which side of the table you're on. Yes. So if I was the seller, I'm going to want top dollar, right? So because I want top dollar for it, I am going to want to show you the best performer or even what a projected performer would look like. So right now, let's say my rent might be $800 per door, but market is $850. I'm going to show you $850. Like, hey, my asset is worth that much because you can get $850, but I'm not even getting $850, right? So as a seller, a lot of time, they're going to prop up their property for you. So you have to remember that when you're going in is that they're giving you the pig with the lipstick, with everything. And you have to take that apart and say, hey, behind this Band-Aid, there's a wound here that I have to heal. Behind this, I have to do that. And therefore, that's $100,000, $50,000 here, $20,000 here. And your value is really worth this much. So like with the Ridgewood, we wanted $3.3 million, but we didn't finish all the renovation. And the guy was like, well, I think there was like 15 units or something. He's like, well, you know what? There's still 15 units left. I'm going to spend $10,000 a unit. You got to give me $150,000 to finish those renovation. That's how we reduced that price. It's because we didn't finish it. But if he didn't catch that and he didn't complain, I would be like, okay, great. I got 3.3, right? So if you're on that side of the table as a seller, that's what you're going to want. But many of you here are going to be on the buyer side. So I want you to be mindful of those things, that take those Band-Aids off, do your due diligence, find the core issue, and really like what Steven said earlier, like find that black swan. Find that black swan and use that against them to get your discount. Because you want to go in, you make your money when you buy the deal. Because remember, what did I tell you guys the reason why I bought this deal? You guys remember how much I paid for it per door? $33,000. You can't get $33,000 anywhere. I knew that. So I'm like, sweet, let's do it. So it's when you got to buy it right to make the money. So question right here. Thank you. If you want to figure out what skills or how you can sharpen your knife yourself, understand what you're good at and what you like to do. So let's say you might not be in business, but you are great at math.
Any volunteers?
You might end up doing the books, figuring out, because we need an accountant, a bookkeeper to manage it. You might be someone that's handy. And if you're kind of handy, you will go that route to be the handyman or the GC on the team. So I tell people that I don't want you to gain a skill just because you think it's great. It has to be something that you like to do. Because if you don't like to do it, you're not going to be great at it. You're going to go halfway. So I think number one is know yourself. One of the things I didn't tell you guys, I share with you guys that, I saw that image on TV, and that's how I went that route. But the confirmation for me was that I was really good at math. I love math, and I love working with money. I'm not a greedy person. I don't like, I hate cash. But what I love dealing with money, figuring out where money went, how we can maximize money, how we can maximize value. And that is how I'm used in these deals. Because I'm brought into these deals to analyze the deals and tell them exactly, this is what you got to do, A, B, and C, and this is where your value is going to be. So an example with the assisted living, I spent like 2 weeks doing analysis. I boiled it down to, we need to add 22 more residents, roll out a program for 25 people, and we're going to sell in 3 years, and we're going to make $4 million. I've got it to that point. And it's because that's my strength. But it's now my partner's turn to say, how are we going to get 22 people? How are we going to roll out this program? So number one would be understanding yourself, your strength, and what you're good at, and then really harnessing that so that you can then build that skill towards something that you're good at and you like to do. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, go ahead. Yes. 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 Yes, so you have to find the group that are doing the deals. So you have to find someone that's doing the project. So let's say you tell me, hey, Shelly, I'm interested in investing in assisted living. I heard you're going to do this assisted living deal. I heard you still need some money. I have $100,000. Can I partner in with you and give you $100,000? I'll give you another example. I just got like $100,000 wired because I have a group that is interested in the assisted living. They want to take over 3% ownership, and they're giving us $105,000 for 3% ownership. So they just wired the funds. I just confirmed it. So that's an example. You got to know the people. You got to know the team. You got to trust them. And so you got to find the people if you want to be in that position to just give the money back out. So, and not be involved. So, any other questions? Oh, we're almost at 5. Go ahead. Yes. Yes. So, doing due diligence on a large property like a multifamily is quite complex. It is basically like a single family times 100. Number one, you almost need to inspect every unit. So you think about when you're buying a single-family home, you're walking that single-family home in the backyard. You're checking the bathroom, underneath the sink, looking at the roof. When you're doing the multifamily, we're walking every single door, every unit, and checking all those things. So what we do is we have a checklist. We create a checklist for every property because every property is different. So we create a checklist for every property, and when we go in, we split up, and we check off those items that we looked at, make notes. That helps us determine the value of that asset. That's number one. 2, when you're in doing due diligence, you're looking at title. You're looking at how they're holding their title. You're looking at any liens, any encumbrance, any easement that you may want to take off, you may want to hold on to. You're looking at phase 1. Some property will require like an environmental study. So you're going to have to do that. You're looking at appraisal and all that. So all that comes in for us. We try to do all that in the due diligence period. We do the appraisal last, but we do all the work in there because if we know we're not going to go forward, we're going to check out before we spend money on appraisal. Before we spend more money on the attorney. We're already spending money on the attorney, but we want to cut that cost. So the due diligence period, I would tell you, depending on the size of the property, you would need at least a minimum of 30, minimum. Larger property, 45, 60 days, easily. But same thing that you would do in a multifamily, just doing it in that capacity. We also bring in special. We pay third-party inspector to come out and also inspect while we inspect as well. So we do pay them quite a hefty fee, but they're kind of like a contractor inspector, like the home inspector for our house, but they'll do it for a multifamily. So they check out the roof and everything, and then once we get that report, we'll bring in a contractor to look at the roof if we think there's an issue. So it's kind of a case by case, but those are kind of the steps that you have to do as you go in. So hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? Go ahead. Yes. So I have not done a 1031 in a multifamily. This deal kind of sort of considered like a 1031 in a way, but not really. I've done a lot of 1031s from single family into multifamily. That's usually where I do a lot of my 1031s. I have a slide that I created for my mastermind group that looked at some of the strategy. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to sell my single family that I've got good equity in, and turn it around and use that equity to buy a multifamily. So an example is I took a single family that I bought for like $68,000. Sold it for like 170 something. Took that equity, drop it as a down payment to a triplex. And so it was no money out of my pocket. It was just that equity. So we did a 1031 in there. And we went from making, I think it was like $400 of cash flow per month in the single family to $1,500. And then now we're up to like $2,600. And we haven't put any money out of our pocket. It's just the gain from the single family that we move into the small triplex. So that's a strategy that I would recommend for all of you guys, especially most of you that have single family, is you got to make that step forward. And to do that, it means selling that single family, taking that equity and buying something bigger, taking that 100, 200,000 and dropping into a multifamily, because 200,000 you might be able to buy a $800,000 multifamily already. And the cash flow on that will probably be twice or three times more than what you're getting in your single family. It's no money out of pocket for you. So that's a way to leverage the equity that you have already. So any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm excited. Thank you for letting me be here.
Yes, round of applause for Shelly. And again, if you guys have any questions, we're going to unison. So check-in is between 5 and 6. It's going to start at 6. We want to get there because prompt, no Hmong time, okay? Because we want to get Kuwins to get talking. That way when it comes to Q&A, you guys can also ask us questions. But with Shelly, get her information. If you guys have any questions you want to ask her, once conference is done, you can continue to connect with her. So
if you guys want, just add me on Facebook, Shelly Cha. That's the best way to reach me. So, thank you.